We are in business.
Yes,
Indeed, Tisha.
sir.
Sir. Yes. Um, it's been a hell of a week, I would say, on let's say on the racing level. I've been traveling forth and back in this long banana republic, which is not a republic, but we wish it will be a republic in this Falukorvian, as we call it, the Falukorv, Operation Falukorv. We will introduce this new name. That is the true art, the true nature of the whole paperclip thing, the whole thing with Delaware, so we will introduce that Falukorv. That's like a strange kind of a Swedish sausage, which is this is a very commonly used name these days. Somebody somebody started this to name Sweden as Falukorvian Inc. or Falukorvian AB, which means Inc. The world's first incorporating, the first stock share company in the mid 1200s in Sweden.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. I was embarrassed to ask you what that meant, Falukorv, but thank you for that.
Yeah, it's a sausage actually, a strange kind of one from the halfway up north, you could say, in Sweden. And it's been commonly used these latest years from politicians and so on that use it for, for optics. So
So,
I've been
Matt, let
pushing
me
that.
ask you a question. Would you rather be a sausage or a meatball?
Well, I think we are a little bit of both. The meatballs goes for the Swedish chef, and all of this. So
A Swedish and
shooty
meatball.
moody hoody booty, shooty moody hoody booty. Yeah, actually they are not so far from telling the truth, because if there is one small country, let me put it this way. You have all these kind of powerful families back in the day when we talk about, well, we're going to end up today talking about Winston Churchill. We're going to talk about the false flag of Pearl Harbor and all of this. But if you look really closely on these families, who came out on top? Is it the Rockefellers? Is it the Schiffs? Is it Morgan? Is it Rothschilds? The answer will be no. Is it Bush? No. Who came out on top? Who had the advantage of information? You will end up in Sweden. You will end up with the Wallenberg family. You will end up with Bombadil. You will end up blue and yellow. You will end up there because the other ones are not as powerful anymore. If we back this down to the, say, First, Second World War, Russian Revolution, and so on. This is a fact. You cannot ignore it, actually, if you want to look at it. So, and talking about this, I would say like this: Winston Churchill was on the verge of bombing Sweden. Because the power struggle with inside the oligarchy, and also, of course, the Nazi brass, including Hermann Göring, Hitler, and others, Rudolf Hess. We shall not forget about him. So these guys, they had to sign a deal with the devil to make a run for it. They made a run for a dash for the cash. Actually, more or less a dash to remove the cash, which they actually did. And then everything went sideways, and then we had to have Pearl Harbor to get, the the oligarchies are meat, meaning you guys, the US. Sorry to say it, but you've been Falukorved. You've been slapped in the face one more time. You've been fooled into another war to protect, or actually one of the first wars to protect the oligarchy. This is the simple basics of it, if we look at it from a very, very objective point of view. And please, anybody that wants to discuss this, grab a mic. We will have some excellent speakers coming up here today. I'm very sure of that. So not just me
Yes.
ranting.
Please grab a mic, and if you don't mind retweeting the space, so we could get some folks in here, that'd be great. Thanks, guys.
So Matt, here's a question for you. So I'm really excited about this topic today because there are probably, I would say, well, at least for where I'm coming from, there's more questions and there's more unknowns than there are definitives. But the depth of Winston Churchill is just staggering. So here's my question. You were just talking about kind of the oligarchy, right? And this is off of, weeks of topics with, CIA and Dulles and, all of the malfeasance that happened on the American end, but also, we have the military intelligence end of things. So here's my question to you. So after Gladio, there was, well, actually, I should say before Gladio essentially kicked off, there was the Ghost Army, right, which was that unit of about 1,000 people.
Yeah,
and
very few. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's okay. So I don't want to get too in the depths of that, but I mean, it's relevant because it all plays a part into the media propaganda, that we're seeing today. I mean, it's wildly important. But my question is, do you think that there was any sort of front to the public part of Winston Churchill going to, let's say, nuke or bomb Sweden and go after them, because he was really rooted in the crown itself? So I find it fascinating that a man of his stature would make a public declaration like that.
That is actually the internal power struggle within the oligarchy. So that is, one side of the oligarchy, aka Rothschilds and Winston. They are, with inside the frame of this war, they are saying, we're going to bomb you, neutral Sweden, because you are, helping out the Germans. So that's just, it's theatrical. But Winston, he has a very deep and profound history. He started out, hanging out with Jan Smuts and the nefarious Cecil Rhodes in the Boer War as a journalist, whatever. Then he went on to, get into the governmental thing. He's like a scammer, more or less. He's like, he had, so he ends up in the First World War thing to grab a hold of the Iranian oil producing to his with Slade and all of these guys. They knew that the First World War was coming before it was even introduced. So they go there and they may, make nefarious deals with Iran to get hold of the oil, because they needed that for the British war machine. So that's Winston Churchill. He knows about all of these things because he's one of the oligarchs. He's the inside man in the government. And he has to play along, just as Hitler and Goering and these guys. Goering is actually, his story. I think you read it. I wrote about him. PTSD, sort of. First World War hero, comes to Sweden, tries to make a living, more or less a broken, a bit of a broken, but still a brilliant young man. He's a young man. And he ends up in a castle, the most gorgeous blonde, Swedish Falukorvian thing, steps down the stairs and swoops him off his feet. And this is together with, and she and the guy who brought her there, Axel von Rosen. He's the one with the swastika logo. That's the one. That's the sort of. He's the one. He's a really, a eugenics propagator, whatever. And this is in 1920. So she catches Hermann Göring, which will be the IG Farben liaison, the right hand of Adolf Hitler later on. So everybody's conspiring sort of against everybody. These guys, they knew after the failed beer hall coup that, okay, we have to make a deal with the devil, but we will make a dash for freedom and the cash. And before this, our dear friend, a young Joseph Stalin, is hanging around in Baku doing social democratic Bolshevik stuff. He wants to, have a better life for everybody, fairness, equalness, whatever, all of this kind of sort of woke things, actually. So he knows the Nobel family, and the Nobel family is straightly connected to all of this, as also with the information technology, with the crypto AG. This is where we have the sort of the beef with this colonel that is just, telling snippets, very interesting and correct snippets, but she doesn't make any conclusions about who was the creator of this. Why did this happen? How did this happen? What was the, the not the ground zero, because ground zero is nuclear, but the founding of this? What was the incitament for creating this kind of operation? And it all started at ASEA with Mr. Young Hagelin, who was like running around in Baku when he was a sort of a baby there. At the same time, Stalin was there as well. And Baku is the sort of this oil producing center of the world at that time. So these guys, they know each other. Both Lenin and Stalin were hanging around in Stockholm. Trotsky were hanging around after his first failed attempt of the Russian Revolution. He was hanging around, and he also went to the US, and he was hanging around with the Rockefellers, and the same did Boris Hagelin. So this is the crypto AG guy. This is a proxy for the Wallenbergs of informational technology. They run that shit from day one. Day one. There's no doubt about it. This is official. It's not even hidden. So these guys, they have the info. They have the back door to all countries that are using this prior to the Second World War, during the Second World War, and especially after the Second World War. But after the Second World War, you form the Five Eyes, and you have, the Five Eyes is US, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, UK, and for some reason also Sweden is involved in this. That can listen into everybody else, and that is like 120 countries using this. This is after the war. Prior to the war, it's only the Swedes. It's only the Wallenbergs. It's only the Swedish intelligence service, which is sort of a proxy for these guys as well. And prior to that, they have formed the Bank for International Settlements together with some friends, and also the start of the UN, which means the League of Nations. This is, and also, done what they did to Germany, and then they introduced the Third Reich concept, which is coming straight out of Falukorv, Sweden, Mordor, call it whatever you want. This is really strange stuff when you hear me speak it, but if we want to dig into it, ask questions, this is how it was run. Sweden, together with, of course, Switzerland, neutral, under the guise of neutrality. They are working in the same legal realm as the Vatican, City of London, Washington, D.C., but they are whole countries. This is insane stuff if you look at it from a 40,000 feet view.
It is wild. And what's that?
Just me. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, that's okay. I just wanted to add one more thing in context also, because so this was handed down. I have a Cram's World Atlas from 1901 with a map, and the map inside, and this was all handed down by my grandfather. There was a map in there of geographical layouts, which was interesting in itself, but also I have a National Geographic, let's see, this is from August of 1965, and this was a tribute to Winston Churchill. And this is, I mean, one of the most fascinating National Geographic publications that I've seen out of the ones he's left me. And the real interesting parts is learning about the Order of the Garter. So one of the most prestigious sort of, I guess, ties to the crown that one could receive is the Order of the Garter. It's only made up of 24 members. He was the highest ranking member of the Order of the Garter. But the interesting part about it is when he first received the, I guess, nomination of it, he turned it down, and that was in 1945. But then further down the road, accepted it in 1953. And I find that interesting because of a lot of things that were playing out between 43 and 45, but also, why did he wait? That's one thing that was just baffling to me, because I don't know if he was just kind of like, you know, like I said, I mean, if there was a guard order and you gotta think of like the cabinet of how the crown works, right? Because there really isn't a king and queen sort of parliament like there once was a long time ago. It's a completely different beast altogether, and so right now it's made up of the clubs, right? And so you have. Go ahead.
And the oldest crown, aka the Swedish one, because that's the old one. They are also the UK crown. You know me talking about the Viking crown. We kings are, and all of this. So this stamps out of that the Vikings were, you know, up until where we say the Viking era ends, which will be in 1066, which is pure bullshit because it just developed. It increased. This is strange. So we have the Viking called Rollo or Richard of Normandy. So his ancestry is William the Conqueror. That's just a couple of generations from one of their, let's call them the OG. You know, they were all over the place. They had sort of Europe in their hand. So what they did is that the Dark Ages, the Middle Ages, and so on, things were sort of put on hold a little bit there. They were trying to get the foothold to do what will come next. Actually, they kidnapped the Pope before this in 1052, 53. They kidnapped the Pope for a year. And then the Popery was quite different after that. Besides that, they had actually occupied the Pope for like 500 years in Italy. Rome was just sitting there, and they had Vikings all around them called Longobards for between 300 and 800. So these guys, they knew what they were doing. and they had the control of all the waterways and all the chokeholds. They were the kings of Europe, no doubt. No doubt. Nobody could stand up to them. But they were doing it, a little bit subtle. They always had this kind of, this roaring Viking, crazy fighting stuff when needed. But mostly they did it by trade and infiltration. They knew what they were doing. So this is when you get to the point where William Conqueror takes over or retakes actually. Romans had it until the year of 300 about. Then they left the UK. They backed down towards Italy and the Mediterranean. Bad days in what today is Germany and France and so on. They could not really step up to the game there. So when we are at this point, when the Vikings are retaking the British Islands, they had a glitch for a couple of 100 years. A Viking called Bloodbeard, he fucked it up a little bit. But anyway, but just 100 years later, they take it back, and then we have the Middle Ages, the Dark Ages. We have the what's that called? Digerdöd and shit. The Black Death in Europe, where like 20-25%, even more of the people were killed due to that they had to actually do a bank crash in the 1350s. Or what was called a bank these days. Actually, bank is a Viking word for bank, as in the Longobards, as in Venice, when they started that banking development of the banking as such, as we see it today. That sort of starts in Venice around 500, 600, 700, sort of under the Longobard rule of Italy. So, Tisha, how does it feel to be a Longobard?
Yeah, that's why I'm giving all the thumbs up to the lumber because my grandfather talked about it all the time. Being from there, being from that area, But I didn't know the history. He didn't, and he was very young, so I don't think he knew all this history as well. It's exciting to hear that. But they were bad guys, were they?
The Longobards.
Not. They're bad guys, right? Kind of like
they made peace. It was a peaceful country until Charlemagne hit them with some new war tactics and so on. And he made a deal with the Pope. The Pope was just sitting there in Rome and being grumpy. He couldn't do anything. So the church was like
that he was stuck. He was stuck there for years, right?
Centuries.
The Pope, centuries. Imagine that. No wonder he was grumpy.
No, several of them, but there was, they still played their game, but they could not really do anything about it because they were surrounded. So the Rome was kept under, as the city of Rome and the Popery in the Vatican were put under siege for so many years. They never attacked it. They just wanted the Popery and all this to be sitting there and being grumpy, because I think that the planning department for these Vikings, they were saying, well, let's see what we can do about this. We will not just end it, we will just keep it there in our back pocket as a plan A, B, C, D, not plan A, but plan B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever. This is how they work all the time. They just regroup, reframe, regroup, plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G. They are really, really good at this. So, and that's what I'm saying, that this is a little bit of a joke, but it's also it bears some real. When I say you've been Falukorv, this is the Swedish word for that sausage. It actually has a meaning, because Delaware started as the first state. That is New Sweden. And talking about Winston Churchill, he is the first ever honorable citizen of the US. The second honorable citizen of the US, introduced and more or less pushed in by nobody else, no more, no less than our dear Joe Biden, a long, long time ago. And guess what? Joe Biden is from Delaware. He and Hunter had his offices at the Swedish embassy in Washington D.C., the House of Sweden. Of course, the building in itself is, and some of the footage you see on the computer is from there, on Hunters, where he brings hookers and so on, and all of this. This is in the House of Sweden. Joe had his office there as well before he ran for president.
You can't make this up, Mott. You can't make it up. It's
I
crazy.
can't. You can fact check me any day. It's just to put the things together. It's just to you can't make shit like this up, and you cannot speak it if you don't know it. But that's why so many people really, really think I am I am a nuisance to the gatekeepers. They really don't like me. All of these three-letter agencies, gatekeepers, and all others that are invested in the current Ponzi scheme, they really, really and truly hate me. And then, you're over the target. So just keep on hitting me. I don't mind. I've got my fair share of the legal system here in Sweden.
You're not alone. You're not alone, Matt. And that's one thing that's very telling when you're speaking truth, and especially during a time where they're trying to fulfill an agenda or a plan. They target us the most. I had my fair share of attacks when the pandemic was first launched, and the only thing that we can do at this moment is just keep doing what we're doing, because guess what? We're still here. We're still standing. There's not a damn thing they can do about it right now. They're going to have to take my ass out in order to shut me up.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going for the same. I am expendable, because when I get expended, there will be quite a few people that will step up. I hope so. It's a hard time.
Oh, you know so.
Yeah.
We will avenge you.
So my only purpose with what I am doing is to be able to retire from this. I've been working like that in the big industry, whatever. My only purpose is to get rid of myself, to not be needed. That is my only purpose. People think I'm just fucking nuts when I say that, but that is my only purpose. I don't really want to do this, but I want to do it for the coming generations and so on. Please, everybody that is listening, step up. Just do it. Just do it. You need to. Of course, I've been studying this for 25, 30 years, so I can speak about it. I know my shit when it comes to this. I might be totally wrong, but so far, discussing the geopolitics and so on, I have not been. And all of these people invested in the Ponzi scheme, in the oligarchy, in the central banking system and so on, they know it as well. Not all of them, because mainly they are stupid fuckers, but quite a few of them doesn't really. They really hate me because
om vi tar det här tillbaks och tänker så att det kommer inte hända liksom. Vad händer då?
Mr. Young Jesus.
Yes, that's Swedish Jesus.
You cannot. Yeah. I know him. He's He is a nice dude, but hopefully we can speak about this in a Swedish space, and we keep to the English, I would say. So you will get dropped if you don't speak English, and if you interrupt, you will get dropped anyway, because John and Tish, they don't they don't act like you are
We don't
used to.
play. We don't play. We
I'm
don't
not
play around.
playing. But the thing is that this shit is not about who's black and white. And what you're telling us is that the thing is that the black is or the whites. And well, I can see it too, but
Thank you for that, Sarah. Thank you. Maud is in the middle of speaking,
we're
so
not
hold on.
there yet.
We are
Continue,
not
Maud.
drunk, yes, Mr. State Secretary Kennedy. I hope that somebody will put that video out. This is when the Swedish Prime Minister is threatening the US government. I think the secretary has that video. This is with regards to what Jesus is saying here. So Swedish Jesus, just drop it. We take it in a Swedish space. That will be okay. We will not let this get interrupted too much. So please, sir, no hard feelings, but maybe tonight is not the night. This is what the Swedish Prime Minister is saying when he's talking to State Secretary Kerry. So he's really putting it out there. This is some years ago. We have this power struggle. Quite interesting. And this is a skilled liar who have fooled the Swedish people for years and years and years and years by acting stupid. The average Joe that doesn't really have any clue about, they say, oh, he's such a fucking stupid idiot, our prime minister. He's just an idiot. No, he's not. He's been making billions, trillions deals for the military industrial complex and so on, for the oligarchs and so on. They don't let anybody that is stupid doing that. He's just good at playing stupid. But that is, of course, a totally, it's not on this topic. So Winston Churchill, he is the main subject here because this guy is in the center of it. The oil, Iranian oil, First World War, he's getting into it. Edmund Slade, which daughter has an interesting thing. We will get to her later on. So this guy is segued in to be the war lord for the UK. The thing is that there is a slight problem here because the Nazi brass is doing their thing. They have signed the deal with the devil to get the finances in. So what happens is that Eva Krieger and Aristide Briand have to go. The Bank for International Settlements has to arise. And suddenly, Germany has an inflow of money that is totally amazing, and they are boosting. Tish, just drop him.
Yes, sir.
So they have an amazing inflow of money. They were war torn after the First World War. They were set up. The Wallenbergs and some other people were doing the reformation of the German banking system. And suddenly you have the Warburg Bank, that is like the Warburgs on the Fed, same family, same people, being the largest bank in Germany, being also large holders of the IG Farben. So this is the nefarious company. This is the world which will go to the world's largest industrial hegemony by far at that point in time. So there is only one little thing that is, well, let's say that it's an opinion problem, because these guys, they claim that they are Jewish, so therefore the Warburgs have to be gone from the scene at least. And they are, of course, involved in all of this together with the Wallenbergs. They know each other quite well, because of the relations they have, and the Warburg family is also married into the Morgan family, and all. You can easily look at the history of the Fed. You will see them there. And these guys, together with the Wallenbergs, with the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, are standing a little bit on the sideline here. I think this is, this could be debated, but I would say so, because they know that they have been fucked over really good, because they know that the pound sterling is not going to be the unipolar currency anymore. They know that they are, being taken over. This is the inside fight of the oligarchy. So, and at the same time, the Nazi brass is thinking about their thing, and they want to get rid of the central banks and so on. They want to make, sort of a coup d'etat, but inside the framework that have financed them. So they are trying to do this. And this is where everything gets confused for everybody, because you mix this with ideological things, with the Jewish Nazi thing, with the camps and all of this, which is in reality, that's not really so important. If you mix it with the Zionist movement, you can see it a little bit more clear if you look at that one from an objective perspective, because that's another Warburg. 1910 to 1920, 1919 actually moved to Israel. That's the big Warburg thing. His name is Otto Warburg. He's one of the gray ones. You don't really see them. His cousin is also named Otto Warburg. This goes with these families. They always have the same names. So you don't really, people that are lazy will not be able to tell the difference. So he is doing the Zionist thing between 1910 and 1920. His cousin is actually receiving the Nobel Prize, the merchant of that prize, in, I think it was 31, for the connection between cancer and sugar, which is sort of the basis for the, let's call it the big food industrial complex and the big pharma industrial complex. Let's just call them that, because it's quite complicated. It's the fine art of cloaking all the way. But at the end, it will be Investor, Vanguard, and BlackRock that sits on top of this. It's really, really, really crazy, but it's there. It's objective facts. This is what happens. So Otto Warburg moves to Israel. 1919, and he's the hidden hand behind all this that will happen until 47, when Israel is declared a state and so on. So, and Israel is there for a purpose, to create an everlasting war in that area, because the purpose of the First World War, one of the main reasons in the First World, which was staged a false flag operation, it was to get rid of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire Kingdom, and also to lock the land area where Israel is today in a forever conflict, to be able to control the transport of natural resources to sea, through boat, to ship, on ship, on boat, ship. This is the chokehold for the railway that the Ottoman Empire, with German interest and engineering, were building to make a connection between Africa and Europe, to make the trade go a total different way. So they just blew it up. That's one of the main reasons for the First World War. If anybody doubts that, please research it. Look at it from any perspective you want, but that is the outcome. And that outcome, qui bono, who did it benefit? Well, the usual oligarchs. That is still the same oligarchs. It's the same people that owns this Investor Vanguard and BlackRock thing today. But on top, if you compare these families, these interests, and so on, you will find out that the little Falukorvian country, Mordor, aka Sweden, is the one that actually came out a winner of this. You can do the maths all day long, but they have all the patents, they have all the companies that runs the internet more or less, and so on and so forth, in a forever lasting company structure. However, as of September 2019, Mr. President Trump put the Space Force / the DOJ on top of this. He attacked them the very first presidential run in 2015-16 for 2016 for the presidential. He attacked them there. And that is a pretty good proof that either he could be a false player, who could be, anybody can be convinced to play a role and then be nefarious if they came out as a winner. But I don't believe this when it comes to Mr. President Trump. He seems to be legit. He seems to be aiming at these people, and is doing it as good as he can inside the framework that you have to work within on the big geopolitical arena. But he attacked them, the very first thing he did. So I was standing up in the couch and saying, yay, let's go. Now we go. And I did realize that it will take a decade or so before we are done. And we are closing in on that one now. So any questions about this? But Winston Churchill is a nefarious actor. He was the one that jumped the order of command, the command chain, and started to bombing civilians, which the Germans have not done. Mistakenly, one bomb landed on some, neighboring house to something, but they have not done any nefarious war crimes or whatever. And Churchill, he jumped the chain of command. He gave the RAF, push them to push them to start bombing heavily civilian areas. And that is the real cause of the big things happening in the World War II. This is proven beyond any doubts. This is what he did. He was nefarious. He was an oligarchy asset. And besides of that, he was just, he was involved in the Pearl Harbor bombings. He was involved in that. He knew about it, as many others, and still they let it happen just to swing a opinion. Actually, Sempill got the highest order, the Polar Store order, in the 50s after this. And Sempill is the key here. He's involved in all of this, including, getting the knowledge of how to build hangar ships, how to build carriers, and how to land on them, how to do these airplane engines and so on. The associates to Sempill, they were all sort of prosecuted or killed because of that they had the Japanese out with this. But Sempill, he received the North Star order, the Polar Star order. It has quite a different name in Mordorian tongue, so excuse me for the bad language. So some years after the war, this is how they do it. You can look at, if you dig into it, if you look at the Merchant of Death prizes, the Nobel prizes, you will find some decent people that have done good, but mainly you will find the servants of the oligarchy, just to give them an excuse, to swing the opinion towards these nefarious people. And if you look at the Seraphim orders of Sweden, the oldest crown, one of the oldest crowns, and we are still here. It's a crown still here. Not the king that is running it, it's just a puppet, but we are still in the crown. So if you look at that ledger, you will find all the people that have done really bad things for humanity. You will find them there. It's just a long run of them. It's quite amazing how duped, how fooled we have been during this. And all of this is, of course, by great planning, great industrial planning. War is industry. Industry is war. War is industry. And the beneficiaries, the cui bono of war is the banks. And if you control the war industry, if you control the military industrial complex, you control the banks, the central banking system, which actually emerged in Sweden 1668 and 1694 in the city of London. Of course, settled within the Viking crown. And the Viking crown also kicked on the project that I will refer to as Viking 2.0. Some people will call it the East India Company. I call it Viking 2.0. That is a strange thing, actually. But in essence and in comparison, what the Vikings did to Europe, the East India Company did to the world. The modus operandi is a total blueprint. Of course, modernized a little bit. And as of Elizabeth I, which is a ascendant to Richard of Normandy, aka Rollo, she granted them the first one. So, and that is the same East India Company that is on your flag that you hoist in the US today, every day. That is the same East India Company. That's your flag. And it's put there by the Vikings. Especially after 1871, when you have all of this. There is actually a Swedish king in between here that actually tried to help out. He was Kennedy or JFK'd, as I would say. people try to do something. Good people try to do something, just as JFK did with his this and doings, which is more or less a copy paste of what a king that actually couped his way into power. Do you hear what I'm saying? We had a king that had to make a revolution, a coup to get in power, to be the king in a kingdom. Hey, you got to think a little bit there. So, and he provided help to the 1776. The 1776 would have probably had a much harder time in succeeded without his help. That was not a small help, it was a big help, and it was in the thousands and yet in the thousands. Professional soldiers and the best officers, multi-language, that could speak both French, English, and of course Mongolian, and so on. He sent them over to help out with the 1776. In the thousands and yet in the thousands. This is something that the historians on either side of the pond they don't want to discuss it. They want to dig it down. They want to hide it forever. Nobody should know about this, but we know. Just as one of the good guys, the Russian emperor, he sent his fleet to protect the east coast of the US from the French and the British in 1863, 64, 65 during the Civil War. The Russians were protecting you from getting invaded by the French or the British and or but this is something that it's not allowed to be discussed, but I'm discussing it. I want to have people talking about it, but this is the simple truth of it when you get there to the bone of it, and it's all about protecting and creating or hijacking is the better word, sorry for my bad English, hijacking the banking system of the US, which has been a struggle from day one. From the day the Constitution was written, the nefarious actors have been aiming at the banking system. That's the main goal for this.
It all boils down to money. What about Roosevelt, Mott? He was going along to get along?
Well, we have the Russell and Company. That is one of the nefarious East India trading partners of running the drugs to China for a long time, including, of course, the Swedes and the Norwegians and all of this, doing the opium trade. So let me put it this way. FDR got the Nobel Prize for being a peace negotiator of the peace of the Russo-Japanese War. The Russo-Japanese War in 1905 was financed by nobody else, no less, no more than the Schiff family. They paid off the Japanese to attack Russia to allow Trotsky to do the first attempt of the Russian Revolution, which failed. So he got the Nobel Prize. I'm not so impressed, if I can put it that way. And of course, looking at the family, what around this and the Russell and Company, he might have said some really good things, actually, some true things. Maybe he got, he grew with conscience at one point in time, just as many of these people do. We have all, I guess, read the Woodrow Wilson, his regrets of what he did. he wrote them before he got the Nobel Prize in 1919, because in 1919 he chose to not give me a moment.
Participate
Participate in the, thank you, Tisha, thank you, in the final runs of the treaty that would put the League of Nations on top of things, that will put the Bank of International Settlements on top of things as well, and put the Germans down for sure. So he chose to not be actively doing what is promised the American public to do in the Treaty of Versailles. And then he got the Nobel Prize in 1919. This is the merchant of that prize, sorry, from the Nobel family. And when you dig into these guys, you will be amazed by they've been all around the place all over the time. This is like but compared to the Wallenbergs, they are secondary fiddle players. They are just playing the fiddle. So the Wallenbergs is the hidden hand. Esse non videre. And they are still around quite much. But, however, I hope they have come to senses and realized that they cannot go along with this anymore, because it's gonna be very, very bad for the humanity overall, including their own heritage, their own daughters, granddaughters, grandsons, whatever, the forthcoming generations. And I think they actually have maybe at one point in time, maybe in the 90s, late 90s and so on, decided to throw all these people that we were talking about before, the invested people, the sub-oligarchs, all of these players, all of these really, really nefarious people that have been playing on their order, on their fiddle. Maybe they have just decided to throw them under the bus. I'm not sure, but it seems like that could be a likely scenario, actually. So these generations of these oligarchs, they might have a different approach to things, but it has to play out, because the audience, you and me, the people, the global population, we are just not paying attention enough to protect our children, grandchildren, forthcoming generations. So we need to pay attention. With that said, John, I know that I've been talking so long. This is one of these like 25 minutes rants. I hope that it makes some sense for you guys listening into this. And grab a mic, shoot some questions, because I'm not giving all of the information now, but because I'm jumping where the red thread is taking me and talking about this. So I hope that I make some sense. If I don't, please come up and say, hey, I didn't get that. What do you mean? How does this work? How does, it is an open forum. So grab a mic, come up. John,
yes, please come up and get a mic if you'd like to ask a question, if you'd like to add something. What I was thinking about, the Nobel the Nobel Peace Prize was also given to Obama, right, in his first month in office, or was it even sooner than that? So now we know how nefarious that is.
Actually, he was 9 months into office, but he went to Stockholm a couple of times before that. Maybe, just maybe, Obama is actually having a role to play in this, and to teach the public something. You never know. You never know. Some players, I'm quite convinced of what they're doing or not doing, but this is like a, if people are dumbed down to the level that they don't care, then you need to shake them up a little bit. So you need to do that in certain steps to make it happen. I'm not sure. I'm not sitting at the planning department. I wish I was, but I'm not.
I wish you were too. I wish you were too. Anybody have a question? Skull? Anybody? John?
Sorry, trying to get back to my mic. No, not really a question, but I just wanted to add, I'm putting together just a thread from this. I had posted it last year. I don't know. I can't find a lot of the stuff, but this book is really nice because it lays out a lot of, important people through a geographical part in history, how it played out. But I mean, it took him, like, it shows a timeline, right? And so there was an article written by Eisenhower, and he wrote in this, because this was the tribute article. So the National Geographic, like I said, this is the publication August 1965. This was the final tribute to Winston Churchill. And you can see how deeply, deeply rooted this man was in not only Queen Elizabeth and the crown, but also the players outside of that. I mean, he was posing in, everywhere from Paris to, London to stateside to, I mean, he was everywhere. Mussolini, he's got a picture with him, or Stalin, and it's just all these people that he was directly in one way, shape, or form connected to. It's incredible. The the stature that he had put out, but also it's very telling. I
So,
mean, the old adage that symbolism will be their downfall. It couldn't be any more true. I mean, this is like Winston Churchill is stereotypical 101, black hat, cane, literal garter and star, like with all of the accolades. And like, I mean, if there was like, here is a language book definition, deep state, it's like, there's this picture right there, symbolism and everything.
101.
So, yep. Yep. So I'm putting that
101.
together. Sorry for not talking much, but I mean, it literally, if you look at, and I'll post the pictures of this, if you look at his funeral procession, I mean, this is National Geographic. This is a huge, like, worldwide publication, right? This isn't like a small local thing. And they literally had his funeral procession laid out in like a very strategic order, right? Because this is just how they do things. And it's unbelievable. It's staggering the extent that they go to, number one, but the extent that they go to then to publish it on a public realm, right? Because they have to show you. They have to show you what they're doing. And it's so telling once you look at these different symbols. It's incredible.
And do remember that Eisenhower, at his military education in what's that called? The fancy where Trump also went to. I'm losing the name. Where do you go if you want to be military brass?
So are you talking like at a funeral?
The finest education you can go to be a military man. Where do you go in the US? You go to what school? The military school, the fanciest one.
I don't know. You're throwing me off
Can't
now.
remember.
I'd have to think about that. Are you talking like military intelligence or?
I'm gonna look it up. Let me look it up.
Yeah. So I forgot the name. I'm sorry. It's one of those really famous sort of Ivory League school, but still military.
Are you okay? So are you talking like Skull and Bones type stuff, or like Bush, like that collegiate level, or are you
but
talking
on the middle.
West Point.
West Point? There you go. That's one of them. I mean,
There you go. There you go. Thank you. Thank you, Secretary. So at his, with the guys and the management, whatever on West Point, he actually was called in the ledgers the Swedish U. That's Eisenhower, because he is coming from a quite. If you look him up, you will see a very strange family history. Believe it or not. So we are at Falukorv again. But also, he knew, and he grew a conscience. He told some truths. He really did. So all good for Eisenhower on that point. He did some nefarious shit as well, but he also came to, at some point in his life, being human, he just stepped on to tell some really good stuff that we needed to pay attention to, which of course people did not. But maybe now it's the time. I see we have hands, so I
Yes.
rest my case, and please.
JGR has a question or a comment. How are you?
Yeah, I was just going to say the West Point, and then it's I think it's Annapolis for the naval. Is what it's for the Naval Premier College here in the
You
States.
cut off a little bit. What was it called? The second one? Annapolis. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Really good information. Just me not remembering, ranting too much, and getting some. I should know West Point. I should know it, but sometimes you lose the names and so on. But I hope the content or the conclusion of it is quite. Thank you so much, Mr. GGR. That just brings me to the JAGs, the lawyers, the military lawyers, and I'm starting to think about that because your lettering is somewhere close to that, and that's how my brain reacts to that. But let's not dive into that rabbit hole. That would be too bad. So, if you guys realize that you have upside down flags, and John, you have changed your flag to the one with stripes going the other way, which is so that's also what they used on the Viking ships. So you never know, it could be a psyop within the psyop, but this time not so much. So
that's actually the international. This is the international peace flag. It's only been flown twice in the history of our nation, and you'll notice the stars in the background are reversed, and the reason why is because of the white flag. The white flag is symbolic of peace itself, right? So, like, if you're doing, the waving your white flag, that's symbolic of, just a peace, sort of, not necessarily like I'm giving in, I'm caving in, but it's a peace declaration. So then, it's removing also itself from the blue background, which is representative of the sea, and bringing it back on the land to the people. So that there's a lot
out of the admiralty, out of the maritime, there are steps in that law as well. But that's all Viking law, actually. It's all Viking law. It came from the island, the unsinkable carrier in the middle of the Oster Sea, which is called Gotland. And it was adopted by the Hansa, which is before we have nations. I don't know if you guys are thinking about this when you wake up in the morning and say, fuck, we have not been a nation for that long. Or, so the nation thing is quite new. It appears just a few years before the world's first central bank. So as a thought, as a operation. So nation states is quite new. The maritime law, let's just call it the maritime law to simplify a little bit. That is adopted by the Hansa, which is city-states, more or less for trade. A city on the seashore mainly, or inside with some transportation to rivers or whatever. Back in the around year 1000 actually, and they are developing. So then they are adopting in the 1200th century. I need to reverse that because we say the opposite when it comes to the centuries. So in the 1200th century, mid of that, they adopt the Viking seafarer law, which will become the admiralty law or the maritime law, which is two steps of the same thing. But anyway, they adopt it. And after that, the East India Company is formed. The French, for obvious reasons, because they will always be law writers, they rewrite it. And then the East India Company is also granted what is called the doctrine of discovery. And that is from the start, as of the year of 1600, 1600, when Elizabeth I, the descendant of Rollo or Richard of Normandy, grants the world's largest private military company to enter the stage, which is actually, in practice, Viking 2.0, but they needed more people, more boats, more guns, and this private company, this is a private company, this is not the crown, this is not a nation. The nations are not even formed as nations when this is happening. The national state is not the concept that the people are living under. So in 1648, the Treaty of Westphalia, this thing is emerging. Before that, in the year of 1600, the East India Company is, ramping up. And that's a private company given all of these grants from the Queen or the Viking Queen, you could call her, to run the business as a operation in private. In 1668, the world's first central bank is formed. And prior to that, a little thing happened because the Swedes, Sweden actually had, well, let's say to create the Peace of Westphalia, they actually, ran Europe down, except for France. They ran Europe down. Because there were no nations there. But Sweden has already adopted that kind of concept and had the military power to just run it down. And it was the great power in Europe. In the order to create the peace. And the Peace of Westphalia gave two things. The control over the banking families, the banks that currently existed, and also the start of forming the national states. And the national states is actually a divide and conquer and cheap soldiers, because prior to that, the soldiers were professionals. They were, well, at that time, you didn't call them mercenaries, but same. And they really demanded high pay, and if you didn't get the pay, they could switch sides at any given moment in time. Not as somebody that is, indoctrinated and so on and so forth. And that was a gamble that they had to, live with. Sweden, of course, the Swedes with Axel Oxenstierna, maybe one of the greatest minds and also greatest nefariousness, you could say. He, of course, realized this, and he was a master planner behind the Swedish overtake of Europe and creating this treaty, the peace after a very long war, but successful for the Swedes, smallest nations, but anyways, they conquered and they did a good treaty, and they took control of the banking system, and they also then sort of influenced, adopted, pushed in the national state thinking. And this is 1668, first world central bank and first central bank in the world. And in 1670, there is something really strange happening, because the Viking crown of the UK is also granting this private military company, which has their own academies, they have their own educations, they have their own shipbuilding, they have their own weapons manufacturing, aka the ground zero for the military industrial complex as it is today. Same. So Charles II, he grants this private company also something. This is really strange, but this is what is happening. Besides that, they have the doctrine of discovery. He grants them the ability to mint money and create banks. Just as I'm a king. The God has told me to, whatever. The church is, we agree with the church. You have the ability to mint money. I just give it to you from nothing, from out of thin air. So this private military company, they sort of occupy large chunks of the world, and the primary thing is to put a bank in, which will later on become central banks or very important banks in the geopolitical chess game, let's call it that. So that is what they're doing for several hundreds of years. This is 1670 when this grant is granted, and as soon as the hijack of the United States in 1871, the first hijack, one of the Operation Falukorv thing is happening, they just dismiss it, they just dissolve it. Well, you do not dissolve the world's largest military, industrial, complex banking hegemony, private owned. You don't dissolve it, you just rebrand it. And that's what they did. And then we are at IG Farben, Investor, Vanguard, and BlackRock as we live today. This is not even complicated when you look at it from my point of view. Then we can go into all the banking with Kuehne Loeb, the Warburgs, the American IG, the Swedish IG, all of these players. But the mains of it is they're still around. They are doing the same fucking shit today. And maybe 80% or even more of the world's countries, leaders, whatever, have realized that, hey, we need to put a stop on this. And I think many of them in generations nowadays realized that when they took Kennedy out, and they said, hey, fuck it, this is the road to hell. We're not going to have it anymore. But we need to, these are the powerful people. They have the food, they have the medical, they have the military industrial complex, they have the US as a very hard hitting hand when needed. And of course, they created the NATO and all of these nefarious things, the EU as well, you know. So you have to play that game slowly. And now we are in the, well, let's call it the last years of this. And of course, the financial side of it, it is what it is. We are running at the end cycle and have been doing that for quite a while of the unipolar financial system. It's not going to last. I'm pretty sure of that. So questions? Come on, shoot. Grab a mic, come up, give a go at it, and we can talk about these small things. Not me ranting forever. I have a tendency to do that when I get carried away, but I hope that you get some content out of this. And of course, there will be lots of articles in the Jumbotron and in the Purple Pill. Tisha, John, over to you guys.
Yes, does anyone want to ask a question or come up and make a comment? Please feel free to request a mic. John, did you have anything to add? And Skuldum, hi, how are you?
Yeah. So, I'm just kind of thinking about where we're at now, right? And the history is so important, and I can't thank you enough, Matt and Secretary, for all of the work you've put in, and collectively everyone else as well. Not to exclude anything, and this is ultimately the reason, behind the next steps forward. Without the history, we have no way to really grasp what we're going to be doing to take a step forward or prevent mistakes of the past. And it's through all of the dissemination and filtering through all the shit that's happened over so long. And it gets exhausting. It does. But in hindsight, I'm just trying to, give some positive sort of, I guess, confirmations as well, because right now we're at such a pivotal moment of not only reflection and looking at the past and what to do going forward, but we have an opportunity, and I'm telling everyone this from the deepest pits of my heart. And this is coming from just personal experience of what I've been doing, what my small part is. And we have an opportunity, if you choose to be a part of a historical moment in time, but also a preservation for your family, for your life, for your home, and for your aspect of humanity as a whole. And playing that role is so crucial. And I can't stress that enough, because whether we want to or can recognize the really, really vast effects of our every move, at least if we apply it at home, if we apply it to our family, we can safeguard that aspect of it. And so there's an opportunity right now to where, and Matt, you brought up the whole minting money aspect of things. Who's to say we can't? Who's to say we can't trade this for that, right? And I just want to plant that seed, because it's really important for us to remember and apply also that because this piece of paper has these writings and this head of this one place at this one time did this thing, and it's like, who the hell are these people? It's like all these statues, all these heads of this and that. And isn't it interesting that all of these heads end up being heads of corporations, and their headquarters happens to be, oh wow, weird how their head is on a quarter. And it's just it's stupid. It is so stupid. And we revere these people in ways that we shouldn't be, right? Because then we become fixed on a one way to do things. And if we step back and we say, Okay, well, this is internationally recognized. Let's say gold and silver, for example. Where does that come from? It comes from the land, right? Although it is internationally recognized, we can use that as a form of trade. It's never been devalued. It's only been stable at one point, and what devalues is whatever paper attachment is put on it. And why? Because history repeats itself. Societies and civilizations become complacent and they become greedy. So they start chasing the paper as opposed to the value. We, as people, every man, woman, and child on earth, we are the intrinsic value. We are the energy, our work, our force, our labor, our everything. We had to pluck that silver. We had to pluck that gold. We had to remove those precious gems, and we had to now make them beautiful. We took the raw and we made it into something. We can plant a tree with a seed and then produce apples and then sell them in a market. And you know what? What we put in, we don't need permission to do this. This is a basic intrinsic element of law. Land, air, water. Food comes from the land. Land provides our shelter. Air and water we need to survive. Without it, we will perish. And I don't want to rant on too long about it, but it's really so important because we're at a moment in time where we can really be a part of something amazing. But more importantly for our families, we can be, the men. We could be the women, and we can be the homemakers that we were always intended to be. And we don't need to ask a damn person for anything. And these clowns who are, in this one building at this location, let them do whatever they're going to do, because they're going to do what they're going to do. And if their trespass involves harm onto your life, just know that you don't have to cower down in a corner. There's people out there everywhere to help. But this is where we come together and really take a stand, and change things for the next 6 to 10 generations, because they screwed us over for so much longer than that. But at least we can do our small part to protect the future. So my question to you is this. All of your unbelievable sacrifice and service, and I thank you for that, not just to what your part did for your geographical location, but essentially, sacrifice is to mankind. So I thank you for that. But also your historical education is so crucial, and I thank you for that as well. What do you believe right now would be a good small step that each and every one can take, just from a basic level of preservation, but also not letting go all of why the crucial elements of your educating is so pivotal, and what can we do to take that step forward?
I'm not really good at giving advice, but what I did by myself is that I sat down and I looked at the Oligarchy, and I even met some of them. I've been, white collar with nice tie and so on, on purpose, because I had a long time planning. These guys and girls and families, they are planning minimum 7 generations ahead. This is why you see, I'm going to give you proof here. I'm going to give you proof. So first attempt on overthrowing, making the Russian Revolution failed in 1905. It failed epically. Roosevelt got the Peace Prize for fake things, just on that. Second attempt worked. The first attempt to coup Germany as early as in 1923. This is the beer hall plot. I think the articles will be put up in the Jumbotron. I hope that the marvelous secretary will put them out there, because that's the solid ground that we have to stand on. all the information coming from the secretary. If you do not follow the secretary, do so, because that's the secretary of humanity, not of Bombadil, actually. So they failed in 23, new run in 32. 33, sorry, but yeah, 32 actually, but they had to remove Aristide Briand and Ivar Kreuger, the world's richest man at that point in time. Very tragical story in Europe, doesn't really concern so much in the US, but it is. And nefarious, of course. So if these guys, and girls and families, and ladies, not gentlemen, but anyway, they can do and do over again with 10 years is nothing for them. It's nothing. We have to reshape, we got to get the opinion with us, and so on and so forth, before we do the next move. They are just playing the opinion. The Nobel Prize, most nefarious prize ever. It's a psyop. It's one of the best public opinion psyops ever. So did I say that Raoul Wallenberg was the advice is that realize that these people are playing the game hundreds of years in planning. Easily 7 generations minimum. When they wake up in the morning, they think 7 generations. So if you can do 7 days, 7 months, 17 years, 27 years, if you start thinking a little bit like that, what it's I'm going to plant a tree for my grandchildren. Every farmer knows this. Let's reintroduce some critical thinking and the farmer's sense. Just go with the farmer's sense. Plant the seeds for your coming generations. You are not the focus. You as an individual are expendable. That I said that earlier. You are totally, to these people, you are totally expendable. They don't give a shit. They have, run these wars and so on to gain a position to do the next move. They actually make a world war, so-called world war, to make a position for the next move. And this is crazy shit if you think about it. So if you do a little bit of that thinking for your future generations, and you talk to them, you try to educate them as good as you can from where you are, you dig in, you do a little bit of research, you listen to crazy fuckers like me that actually have this to provide. No more, no less. I'm sticking to the book. I'm sticking to what's actually out there. I'm just making some connections between the events and the people that you will never be presented if this bullshit schools, education, media, whatever we are living under or within, or whatever you want to call it right now. So make 7 days, 7 months, 17 years, think about generations ahead, plan for those, plant a seed for those, like the farmers did back in the day. It doesn't have to be a tree. It could be another kind of seed of knowledge or of empowering the future generations that you will never see. You will never see them, but you know that you have left them something to think about, something to reason about, some critical thinking, and non-compliance. That is how you win this
That is
game.
so beautiful,
That
Mott.
that was beautiful. Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to add one more thing. I, I hope everyone heard Mott just now, because I know there's a cultural barrier, there's a difference, but what brought us together was history, was the past. And I cannot thank you enough again, as well as so many others, Secretary as well, for all of the hard work and effort. It will not, at least in my little realm of the world, go in vain for sure. So I gratefully and humbly just thank you for all of the efforts, because it plays such a role. And with that barrier, I know sometimes we stick too much to the book. So I wanted to hear your heart a little bit, Mott. And I I'm not treading lightly, but I'm being respectful, because I will poke and prod and I will get whatever I want, as far as like to get the true core root of things, right? And I love that you gave your why, and I appreciate that so much. People, I'll end it here. And I know Scully, you got your hand up, but people become disillusioned with the noise, and it's so important to hear people, because the efforts that are being put in. Mott doesn't ask for a penny. He doesn't ask for anything. None of these people do. They just put their head down and grind, and they just do, because they know that it's for the betterment, for the good of mankind. And I don't think that that's said enough. So at least I'll say it, because it's so important to also appreciate and give thanks to those that are doing different sacrifices, and try and cut through some of that fat and the noise out there, because people will slander and say stupid shit that they don't even know what the hell they're talking about, coming from good people. And so I just thank you guys so much for everything that you've done, and I appreciate you. And I can't wait to one day head over to the depths of the swamp, and we'll have a little soiree, a little picnic, a little gathering.
If we survive, we're gonna have a barbecue.
That, that,
That's
that,
for
none of
sure.
that if garbage. Come on, we will be doing that. So
Oh,
think
yes.
positive.
Think positive, guys. Yes, thank you so much for all the hard work and effort. Look at what the secretary has put up, all this information for us to read. And once again, like John said, they do this for us for free because they want to share the history, and we got to thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Skuldum, did you have something to add, sweetie?
Oh yeah. Hey guys. Um, Thinking what was Mott was saying earlier, and I really appreciate what he said because he went right in there. It was good, and you know, I was going to say like, how can we minimise their abilities and communication, their communication system to government, our governments, or whatever. If we can minimise their communications by a takeover of their communications, um, that'd be quite effective. I think that's probably already happening as we speak. But then you can have the trickle down effect of that, and you talk about the schooling system, the education system, everything like that. So once they've lost control of the people that they are controlling, that can make these decisions, can do all this sort of stuff. Um, Hopefully the community starts seeing through, maybe if we start asking for more FOIA requests and everything sort of opens. So I think I watched this guy, and he just wants the government to just be more open, truthful, and everything like that. So yeah, I think communication is a massive key.
For sure, it is. Communication and information. The advantage of information is what have put these nefarious actors in generations the oligarchs on top of us, the control of information, and of course the control of school systems. I have heard both Trump and also Mr. Flynn. I know that this is a beef or a discussion within the US. They both have said we gonna put the federal school system out of, if you are working on the federal school thing, which is like a the building that John was talking about before, it's a very nefarious organization in the US. It's not as nefarious as back here because there is a lag, of a decade or two or whatever. That is what gives the let's call it the Swedish, Mordorian, Falukorvian. We have a little bit of an informational head start because what you are experiencing, we have already experienced for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 decades. So we know what these people are doing, and they are hitting you with the same, but it is, it takes a little bit of a time before it gets into your systems. That goes for Australia as well, Scotland. Same shit, same agenda, same modus operandi. It just keeps on repeating itself. Because and if you're in the heartland of it and you can see it, so informational advantage, school system, hijack that, do what you do, make all of these crazy teachers for, it takes a couple of generations, but then they will be just fucked up. And both Flynn and in the US, both Flynn and Trump said, federal school system, if you're working there, start packing your bags. You're gonna be gone. At the minute they get into power, you're gonna be gone. We have you all logged. We know all of you. We have control over you. Just start packing your bags. You're gonna be gone. And that is a good thing. For me, that is a practical and a very logical, sensible, farmer sense way of handling things. Because these, and I'm not blaming individuals, they are just fucked up. Teachers, whatever, principals, and so on. They are fucked up. Each and every individual has a choice. Either you comply to the system or you don't. If you comply to the old system, that is a nefarious one. That is to hurt our children. If you're complying to that, you are no good in my book. And obviously you are no good in some other people's book. And it just depends on where you are. I can argue for that, and I can show you evidence, and I can do, but if the system still, the oligarchy system still is on top of it, it will not stop. It will just continue. So ever so slowly, sometimes they have to stop for a decade. Even so, that's nothing for them. They know they played a long game. So with that said, Skaldam, thank you for your input. And I think you can confirm that it looks pretty much the same down under.
Seldom, you had your hand up, buddy.
Oh yeah. I didn't want to. He was going on a thing. I didn't want to interrupt him, but yeah. It is over here. Over here, New Zealand. It's happening everywhere. But I was going to say the principles They should be held responsible. The teachers, they hire some crazy teachers. The hiring thing would have been all crazy, whatever. But it was the principals implementing all this sort of stuff. So yeah, definitely. And the fact that schools going back to state maybe rather than federal, that's a huge bonus.
You took the words out
That's a
of my
massive
mouth. I
bonus.
was going to say the same thing. It's got to go back local. Local's important.
Yeah, it's so important
And
because
supported
then
by the
families.
community and made up of the
Yeah.
people, not the powers that be.
Yeah. And now getting to the military thing, so communications takeover to minimise their communications, identifying the military and the bigwigs in the military who went along with this, and then implementing who we need in there. That's another. That's a biggest. I think that's bigger than education.
I'm gonna put out a statement on that, which is it's gonna sound a little bit crazy, but it is a matter of fact. So there is one company that has most of the patents, that has probably the most sophisticated stuff for military use. So, and that is the 16th country when NATO was formed by 15 countries. That means also the sixth eye in the Five Eyes countries. This is a small little country way up north. And it's not a country, it's not a nation, it is the oligarchy within inside that is hiding within inside this country that has been hidden for a long time, which is quite strange, under the guise of neutrality, together with Switzerland and Sweden and Switzerland have been hiding under this guise of neutrality, which is totally false. And believe me, if I know it, all the world leaders, all the leaders that are opposing this system, a fairly good estimation would be that they know as well, possibly, So the informational advantage was the crypto AG, as we discussed before, which is, Ericsson operation. The largest and the most powerful informational advantage is, of course, the internet as such. And the largest player there in 184 countries that holds the telecoms and so forth is the Ericsson company. Out of this little small country where my sorry ass is right now situated. So that's why we know it, that's what I'm talking about. The informational advantage that we possibly have, that have been living, with this kind of decades cycle that I was talking about before. So we have all seen it. The first, I'm going to give you a couple of examples here. The first country that ever implemented the social security number in 1947. The first country that brought you the central banking system in 1668. The first country that started mass vaccinations in the late 1800s. This is and brought you the eugenics as well. All of this crazy stuff, and also that little thing with the Nazi thing and the Second World War and paperclip and Bank for International Settlements, and it is strange. I know that lots of the US people have a hard time realizing this. But the first state that was a state that started the judicial thing in the US was Delaware, and that is New Sweden. That is Swedish all through and through, even under the guise, as per usual, of some Dutch, but it doesn't really matter. So Delaware is blue and yellow, and I talked about that before. Biden pushed in Raoul Wallenberg, and Raoul Wallenberg is not even one of the, he's not in the center of that family. He's in the outskirts. A cousin. They put him in as the second honorable. Biden put him in as the second honorable citizen of the US. And the first one was Winston Churchill. So I think that would make some kind of optics that could be in some way to realize that maybe these guys are just the handyman of the oligarchs, and they have to be Hollywoodized, so to speak, to make the opinion, the large masses swing in their favor. Because there is a saying, that a telltale, that if you have the opinion with you, you can do anything, and if you have the opinion against you, you can't do shit. So this is to get, you have to in order to move this further on, you really have to reach the broad masses.
It's the belief
At a certain,
of the people.
Yeah, it is. The war we are in is the war of our minds. Nothing else. There is no way you can, except for nuclear, Armageddon, whatever, which is not going to happen. I'm pretty sure of that. So there is not enough soldiers, bullets, bombs, whatever, for conventional warfare to even touch more than 10% of the world's population. So when you run out of the bombs and the guns and the mercenaries and the nefarious people, what are you going to do then? When they are out of ammo, when the mercenaries are out of ammo, what's going to happen?
They're going to try and hack into your account and then change your password on you, and then your account gets locked, and then you get kicked out of a space that you're co-hosting, and then you got to change your password. That's what you got to do.
Exactly. Or maybe something.
That just happened to John Mott just now.
Yeah, it literally just happened now. Somebody tried to hack into my account, so my account got locked, and I got booted, and then I had to change my password because otherwise I couldn't access my account.
Over the target. Over the target.
Yeah. I'm pretty used to that.
Yep, they hate me too. So yeah, we're in the hate boat.
Yeah. Believe me, guys.
Ma, when
in the audience,
I'm sorry. When you were talking about Federal Reserve, Social Security, late 1800s, the vax, eugenics, the paperclip, are you saying that all came from Sweden originally?
Yes.
Wow. No.
100%.
Amazing. Just amazing. Thank you. I'm just confirming. Wow.
We hijacked you. It was the origins of what we know to be fractional banking.
And it all started in Sweden. And Sweden's not a big country, correct?
No, it's not. Well, landmass is quite big. Natural resources, fair enough. We provided the German war engine the IG Farben engine of the World War, with what they needed. So it's 10 million people. It's like New York would, race up against all other states and just fuck them over.
Wow.
The funny thing is that, like, you've stayed out of all the wars too. You've let. Have you? Am I wrong in saying that you've let the military just walk straight through your country into another one during the wars?
One more time, rephrase.
So an army's always on the march, and they just stayed neutral the whole time. Whilst they'll, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But were they marching through any of the neutral towns?
No, they were totally neutral, But the Germans were allowed to travel too, and also just by pure coincidence, this little thing with nuclear bombs were, created within the Swedish oligarchy through Lise Meitner that provided. So this if you have seen the Oppenheimer movie, that's just a fucking piece of bullcrap. That's like the Hollywood movies about Raoul Wallenberg, the Biden, the one that Biden made the second honorable citizen of the U.S. So the nuclear bombs, the nuclear technology is from here. By coincidence, also when Donald Rumsfeld just coincidentally happened to be on the board of the Swedish company ABB Atom, which today is called Westinghouse, because you have to change flags every now and then. They'll be providing everybody, including the Russians, with the technology needed to do nuclear bombs or whatever, to keep the balance as they want it, to play the big chessboard. And this is this small little country. This is it. The level of engineering and stealing patents, because they have the informational upper hand through the crypto AG and so on.
And they're all housed there too, correct? Like State Street, Vanguard has a building there. The WEF is there. Am I correct? That they all have they're housed there.
Yeah, the WEF and the Antifa and Soros and these guys, they are all connected to this. Soros has all his banking and so on, his quantum funds and so on the SEB, which is the Wallenberg Bank. This is the bank that was by the, US is big, US military is quite an honorable organization, but not always. You have Kissinger and all these guys running in Pentagon together with his Swedish friend, who was called Ingmar Dörfer, who is he's dead now, but he's like one of the nefarious, whatever. So the point is that they have the information, they have the crypto AG, they know what everybody is talking about prior to the war, during the war, Second World War, I'm referring to, and after the war, they are forming this. So, and then we are coming into the Allen Dulles, John Foster Dulles, and Rumsfeld, and these guys are providing in the 1945, they are providing the trigger mechanism to make atomic bomb or a nuclear bomb. Sorry, atomic is Swedish, or Mordorian, whatever. A nuclear bomb to explode. they are providing that to the Manhattan Project. They are also working together with the Germans all through these times. You all seen maybe heard about the heroes of the Telemark, the Rjukan facilities that the Germans had in Norway after they occupied Norway and so on. This is crazy shit, but believe me, Lise Meitner provided, together with her friends, this. And she was on the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute, which is Rockefeller founded, which is IG Farben, which is Ford, and all of these guys. This is in the open when they do this. I made a very long article about this. If you read it, you probably would think it's like, oh, that could not be, but that was the way they were working back then. And it's all down to eugenics and these nefarious things that they are doing. And
so do you think they're hiding new technology?
Yes.
Because they own the patents?
Yes. No doubt about that. What we have in our hands on our laptops, the units we are listening into right now, it's like 30 years old. Of course they have. You know, I've seen some shit. You know, when we come to this, like, let me put it this way. Can you point out one country with less than 10 million people, less than New York, that actually manufactures maybe the best jet fighters, the air fighters in the world? Because they really do. That is sort of the point of it, you know. It is crazy shit. But they're really good at what they're doing, and you know they get people to do this stuff. So we have one of the smallest countries in the world, and no country with that is so small is manufacturing like crazy shit airplanes that will, you know, they've been doing that for quite a while, and they were doing it. They stole sort of that technology from the Germans. The Treaty of Versailles were preventing the Germans to have anything else but a small standing army with just small arms, small caliber arms. So what did the Swedes do? Yeah, they manufactured airplanes for the good German engineering and so on. So they manufactured them in Sweden without the machine guns or bombs adapted, and they shipped them to train the let's call it the elite forces, or what will become the Nazi army, long before it happened, in violation of the Versailles treaty. Sorry, not treatment, treaty. They did that in Sweden, and they sent them to the training grounds, and actually in Russia, believe it or not, because they had, you know, they at that point in time in the 1925, 26, 27, they still had a, you know, a hook on Stalin. So because he needed, no, it was even earlier than that. Stalin had to get rid of Lenin before he went all crazy. So at that point in time, after the Russian Revolution, when there was actually building the German, the Yankee bombers, they are still on the Saab logo. They were building them in Sweden, you know, developing and building them in Sweden. And training the training the German elite forces, pilots and so on Russian grounds, because Lenin was still in the power. And Lenin is actually of Swedish heritage. Believe it or not. That's the way it goes.
Wow, that's amazing. Lenin was of Sweden descent.
Yes, 100%. Stalin was not. So Stalin had he had a grudge with these people already in the 1890, late 1890s. So he knew them, and that's probably why, I don't know who poisoned Lenin. He got very sick and he died, and all of this. But one of the most amazing things about Lenin is that when the Russian Revolution in 1917 should occur, is that this guy, he should be present in St. Petersburg, where the Swedes have been for a long time. They have their own, they sort of owned St. Petersburg. The Nobel family, as in the Nobel Prize, they were the kings of Baku. They were all over Russia, and they've been there for quite a while. They are arms dealers, but they ended up in the oil business together. Actually, not together, with in competition with the French side of the Rothschilds in Baku. This is European history. That's the way it goes. Baku was the center of it. So Leonid, he has to go to make the revolution, with Trotsky already started for the second time. And I'm running out of battery here.
Yeah, we can close it down. I did post above that Putin offered a truce and Zelensky declined. I believe this happened yesterday. The video's above. Um,
Yeah,
Zelensky he declined it.
I,
Yeah.
I'll have the wording. If you go on my timeline, you find the wording. So, anyways, I'm just going to continue to ranting on here a little bit. So what happens is that Lenin is going to do his revolution, which is of course staged by the oligarchs, as per usual, as per modus operandi. So he goes. Instead of going he is situated in Switzerland. Oh, surprise. He was actually hanging out with the dolls and all of these, American guys, the nefarious dolls, the same dolls as in Kennedy dolls. Same thing. Anyways, so but he doesn't travel the straight line, which is it's not far from Switzerland to St. Petersburg. It's not really far, actually. But he, just by some coincidence, nobody understands why, he travels all the way to Stockholm, Sweden, all the way around the Baltic Sea to the north of Sweden. You are far north of the polar circle, and then back down to St. Petersburg. That is like 300-400 kilometers of detour. And he stays in Sweden for a while, in Stockholm, before this. And the kickback of 500 tons of gold, nobody talks about. That's the kickback from Lenin. And then, Lenin goes out. But that's between 1920 and 1924. So he goes out in 1924, and then things start to look quite differently. So I think Stalin knew, I think Trotsky knew, and I don't think, I know that I knew, but that's the way the game played out. And one of the most peculiar things about Lenin's travels is this is a war-torn Europe. It's everybody is disagreeing over everything. But he gets a diplomatic train. He rides into Stockholm, Yes, for some reason, and that's sort of gonna be through some MI6 people that fixed that for him so he can get safely from his hideout in Switzerland to Sweden and then to Russia to make the revolution when the revolution is already ongoing. And that is, one of the nefarious revolutions that you have seen. But yeah, it is quite amazing how obvious this is. I'm running out of battery and I don't have ability to load up my computer again because I'm traveling. So I'm gonna read one sentence out of the article that is put on top. In 1924, the British intelligence agency MI5 was on Sempil's trail, having intercepted alarming correspondence between him and the Japanese, which included secret details of the latest British aircraft engine and discussion about the recruiting on other high-level Britons or British citizens. But despite their overwhelming evidence against Sempil, this treason led to no prosecution. Funnily enough, nothing was done to stop his activities for fear of embarrassing the government. Suspicions of double playing were of course nothing to the British government wanted to have to discuss about in the public. This is Winston Churchill and Sempil. Sempil was a key factor in Pearl Harbor, as Winston Churchill and some other nefarious American actors. It's not the 9/11, but it will tell a tale. And please read the article. I think the great secretary have put it up there. Please, as long as I'm not running out of battery, I will change units here so I can hang along for a while. But please grab a mic and shoot me down or shoot me in the foot, whatever you would like to do.
In the foot.
And
welcome, Leon. Did you have a question, Leon?
Hello, everybody. Hello, GSGs, aka Aces, Awakened Swedes, and the Aces. Well, I have a few questions because you brought up Switzerland, you brought up Hitler. Who was it? Alex Jones, I think his name is. He brought up a video a couple of days ago. I cannot find it, where he put Hitler in the English version, how he speaks. Hitler saying Germany for Germany, France for France, fighting more or less really for Germany. But did not the Wallenbergs select him? That's what my first question.
Nobody that is even close to be, a large figure or whatever dares to talk.
Uh-oh. Can anybody hear Mont?
He's gone, I think.
Yeah, he'll be back.
Secretary, do you maybe have the answer to this? Because what confuses me is Wallenberg selected Hitler, but yet Hitler was talking for the well of every country, saying America to Americans, France to France, Germany to Germans, etc. And all the things about the Jews that he apparently did or did not gas. There's so many questions about this. If the Wallenbergs did elect him, and now the things they said that Hitler was saying is true, where's the connection? I don't know how to explain it. It confuses me so much. What I'm trying to say, Hitler said this apparently from Alex Jones' video. Yeah, Germany, Germany. But if someone is so pro for his country, defending his country, why would the Wallenberg accept this?
The secretary's English is not very great. It's not that good, so we're gonna give Maud a minute. What this happens a lot where he falls off and comes back on. So just give him a minute to come back on. There he goes. He's gonna go down and come back up, and he will answer your question, sir.
Thank you very much.
There you go, Matt.
Hey, Leon, you are a great fighter. I had to switch units, so I missed out a little bit. Could you please just reiterate your question and come again? I'm so sorry for the interruptions.
Well, yeah, you are the last one who has to be sorry. You're a bloody encyclopedia. You, Carl, Jason, oh, you guys is just incredible. My question was, if Wallenberg elected Hitler, and Hitler, Alex Jones, the last video that I think disappeared from X a few days ago, where Hitler was going pro-European, Germany for Germany, France for France, etc. If a guy like him, who was elected by the developers, would be so pro for his country and all other countries. Why?
Yes,
Why would the developers? Yeah.
I would say that the Nazi operation, the Third Reich project, like the Ukraine project that we are all very aware about these days. So yes, they handpicked him for that, and especially Göring as well. Let's not forget about him. He had to die before he got into the Nuremberg trials because he knew too much, you know. Um, uh, I don't even think that this is a secret, but as well, many people have said we have to rewrite the history of the Second World War, and that is actually what we are doing here live now in X Spaces. And that is a good thing because we need to look at these historical events from a little bit of a different perspective and get some farmer's sense into it. Some you know, but to get some farmer sense, you also have to get some information from the source where things actually are happening. So I would say yes, he was chosen. He was. Especially since the beer hall coup thing, that's in 1923, so they had a couple of years before they make the dash for the cash or whatever, the run of it in 1932. And they knew that they had to put Krieger out of the way. They knew that they had to put Aristide Briand out of the way to get that going. And then it's like 6-7 years before the war starts. And that's the build-up time that the IG Farben has to, build up the industrial base to do this. What they are not counting on is that whatever you think about him, but if you just go to the genetic war, the pure maths of it, is that Stalin realizes this. Of course, he's not stupid. He's been since then 1890s. He's been around with these kind of Nobel fellows. He knows the Swedes. He's been in Sweden quite a few times and so on. He knows this. He knows what they want to in the end game. He knows that they want to rape. He knows that they want to make his country Sudan. He knows that. So he counteracts, and nefariously in all ways, big pressure, whatever. That's not the excuse. But what he does in practice is that he builds it, and pay attention, dearly now, people. In the Donetsk and Lugansk, these regions that are the ones that he is fought about or talked about, or in the center of the Ukraine thing. In these regions, under very not nice circumstances for the workers and so on, the Russian people at that point in time, they are working their hands to the bone to build T-34 tanks, which is the concept of winning for this Russian, whatever you want to call them, to win the Second World War. In practice, that's the practical side of it. The T-34 tanks, they are building them there in secret, because nobody can see this. This is before the satellites and so on. So this is a hidden operation on a very large scale. And the proof of this is one of the few interviews when Adolf Hitler and, believe it or not, a Swedish guy called Mannheimer, who happens to be the president of Finland, which happened to have a wife that is a Wallenberg wife, by accident, of course. She's called Kalle Wallenberg, by some strange thing. So they have a sneaky Finnish journalist that actually throws in a microphone into the train where they are traveling to celebrate Mannheimer's birthday in the middle of the war. This is in the middle of the war. So this is Adolf going to his overlords to make a report and get something, some information or whatever. So he's traveling to Europe to get up to Finland. And we will get to Finland later on, because this is a quite strange story about this bordering country to Russia that might have been a quite important country once upon a time. And then we get to the war popes after the Vikings kidnapped the Pope in 1052, 1053. Then suddenly the era of the war popes pops up, which is quite interesting, but that's another story. So in secretly, these guys are actually one of the few clips where Hitler is speaking off the record. You will see him just as Zelensky, always official, always on the podium, but never in person. That's the way it goes when the script writers are writing the script. Think about it.
When you said minor,
it is
this
really.
Sorry, I didn't want to cut you. It's just when you said minor, the minor family. Does this have anything to do with Oppenheimer?
That was a long shot. I didn't really understand it, but I'm just gonna close this case first, and then we get to the Oppenheimer thing. So at this train traveling to Europe, a Finnish journalist throws in a microphone into the wherever Hitler is talking to Mannheimer, and what they are saying is that, fuck, these Russians, they have all these T-34 tanks. They're gonna beat us. We cannot do anything about it. They're gonna beat us. What are we gonna do? So this is one of the few snippets of information that we have that is actually recorded and confirmed by both Finnish authorities and so on and so on. That is, I will share it with you guys. I will write the article. I have never written the article because very few people are listening to this. But anyways, so let's get to the Oppenheimer thing. I'm sorry.
Because you mentioned the name Mannheimer. Mannheimer, Oppenheimer, like the Bild family, Wallenberg, Bilderberg Group. Is there link with Mannheimer and Oppenheimer?
No, there is no obvious link. Mannheimer is a Swedish family coming out of Sundsvall, which is one of the Wallenberg, like, ground zero sort of things. Not ground zero, but, so the Mannheimer family moved into presidency of Finland is just, one of the normal oligarchy moves. Oppenheimer and Mannheimer is there is no connection there, at least to my knowledge. So Mannheimer is former president of Finland. My pleasure, sir. Oh, we are running
next
time here quite a lot. So yes, go ahead, Leon.
Was it George S. Patton who said we are fighting the wrong war during World War II? Is that because America, everyone was against Germany, or why did he exactly say we are fighting the wrong war?
Oh, well, he is, of course, misquoted, and they are pointing against the communists and so on, against Stalin. But the true story about Patton is that for some reason he was appointed to do the tour of Sweden after the war was won by the Swedish Wallenberg bombs hitting Hiroshima and Nagasaki. There would be no nuclear bombs at that point in time on Hiroshima and Nagasaki without the Wallenbergs and Lise Meitner and under their control, 100%. So what we could say about this is that perhaps things would not have turned out the way they did without some influence from the neutral country. Is that I don't know. It's not answering your question completely, because the topic that you are bringing up is the Patton thing is Stella Polaris, the Operation Stella Polaris. He aimed not at the when he was saying this, he had went to Sweden. He had made some really good statements. He didn't want to go to church because he knew it reminded him of death. And he went back to Germany. The assassination attempt failed. He recovered in hospital and then he died because of complications. So Patton discovered the IG Farben thing. He discovered lots of things. And he was also, by some good people in Sweden, invited to have a look at some intelligence files and so on while he was here, because he has been here before. He was in Sweden before in the Olympics and so on. So he had some, honorable friends, not oligarchy friends. He was participating in the Stockholm Olympics in the military, what do you call it, the 5 games, whatever competition, which he was successful in. Actually, he was an extraordinary person in many ways. So he found out, he understood, and the U.S. military intelligence, they were all over the place, and we will get back to that in the next space with Axel von Rosen that I have mentioned. This beautiful blonde coming down, sort of hijacking, honeypotting, Göring, and we will get to that in the next space. Thank you so much for your question, Lian. I hope you will come up the next time. I know that you are a fighter, and I really, all of your articles and so on, I really appreciate you, sir. Let's get to the next hand. I'm running
We
out
have
of power.
Coconado? Did I say your name right?
Tisha, Carol.
Oh, Carol.
Go ahead.
Carol, I'm sorry, Carol.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. Did you, Secretary, want me to speak
Yes,
about
please.
from the message?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do that, please.
Okay, I try to make it in English. If I if I understood Lian's question right, you asked about the speech who was translated from the little guy with the mustache, that he wanted more of nationalism, for example, each country for themselves. But I think, or at least I give it a shot to explain or answer that question from another perspective than what Bombadil gave you. So you were what you asked for was the contradiction, because if the little guy with the mustache was sent from Wallenberg, but he was including in his speech that he wanted every country for themselves, that contradicts each other. So that was your question. But the thing is that this was long strategic planning. So first they needed to divide the country, the German, by put the Jews they were blaming the Jews for all the problems, and then they are how do you say förstärker by talking about the nationalists. So then you get the standing ovation and such from the people. So that was just all a show. So first you divide and conquer the Germany from within by using Hitler. So and that by doing that, they were forcing the Jews later on into another country, and that's why Israel was created. For like Mott was telling us about or speaking about earlier, to control their resources, the flow from Africa, for them to building a railroad, because that is the only land connection that connects the countries. So and then they leave the Germans with the big loans to keep the how do you say concurrent, or they want to leave the Germany with low production, so they can't expand themselves. They have to pay these big loans, and then you create the EU. So these are like different parts in a long strategic plan. I hope I made some. I want to put a bad word there, but
Yeah, that was very, very clear. Now, yeah, you answered to the question. It's just amazing how, Germany, Israel, Africa, everything links together. Everything comes back to the Wallenberg. And knowing that this is, like you said, a huge show, it must have been planned like centuries ago. Am I right?
yes, but we need to remember that, like also Mott said, and I think every logic sense tell us that if you have control over the information, then you can make a much longer strategic plan. And also you have uh, within your own, let's say, collective, the deep state, and all the connections with important decision makers, you can also make in large, I would say. You cannot control every circumstance or outcome, but in large, you can implement the strategic steps. If you have control over the information, then you can put like how do you say, honeypots and such. You can, vad säger man? You can make them do the bidding of your choice if you have put them in such a spot, because you can eavesdrop on the
Like blackmail.
telecommunications. Yeah, blackmail. Yeah. So these guys are. They have the right tools to make the right choices, if I say so.
They because the Titanic was also in I don't remember which date it was. They sank who was back then the richest guy on earth, who was against the Federal Reserve. After the Titanic sank, a few months after, I think it was, if I understood well, the Federal Reserve was made. This was also all Wallenberg.
Yes, I don't know if maybe Secretary or Mott has spoken about it earlier, or are about to speak it on a later space, maybe about all these Federal Reserve and the Warburgs and such. I don't know.
So that means the Wallenbergs were since 300, 400 years, always in control of 99% of the entire world, whether it's politics, media, Ericsson, of course, who controls everything. It means they were always the one since centuries who were planning, controlling, and probably even predicted or made the world become what it is today. With the past, they probably looked ahead saying, oh, this is going to happen. We're going to make this shit happen. So in the future, the world will be what it is today.
Uh, it's hard to plan for like that specific type of strategic planning, but they knew to take strategic positions, like for example the control of information in any possible way. Before it was with the blackmail for the Vikings with the Vaticans, and to stay close to the important people so you can blackmail them, and but it was and then you can eavesdrop on and maybe do the lifeguard, so you can hear every important conversations. So it's exactly like the intelligence services today can listen into phone calls, and then you can read like transferring with the money systems and the stock exchange, and it's always about the information. So they just needed to have uh, the uh, as the society and the world evolves in different historical periods, they knew from very from very early that they need to have control over the information, and you can see this type of thing like through the whole history.
We need to make a space one day because I have so many questions, and you guys are the only one who can answer. There's just so many questions, and I'm sure everybody else in the group has thousands of questions which only you can answer because it's everything. Whatever we talk about, everything always comes back to Sweden. Sweden is.
And for example, you know, for when Mott is speaking about ABB and Ericsson and such, for I guess the most of us or everyone else, or I don't know, the most of the people, just if you Google like who has the control over the telecom or such, you will find like big corporations that owns the lines, the telecom cables. But these guys know how to have strategic parts in the stations in between the cables, and then they have patents for the specific parts, and then they make arrangements with their company to take control over the market, so nobody can come in and like, because they already have taken positions with their specific parts, like the technical solutions and such. So, and then they can eavesdrop because they have the technology to do so in the, not the server stations, but you know, the thing in between. So it's the same with ABB. They don't have to control like the power plants and such. They just need to have specific parts and have control over those, and then they have control over everything. Because like I think he told in another space before, Apple and Google and such, it's always about taking, it's always about the power and control, because it's like they have to put choke points on strategic places to take a little bit of everything in between. Nobody can.
Exactly.
It's the same with the Israel.
Exactly.
They're making war and disturbance in Israel to direct the shipments to the route that they control. It's the same modus operandi to always direct the circumstance that they want to create. It's the same thing with information. They just want to have control to either destabilize, so they redirect the information or the power to a place that they have control over.
And what
exactly.
is
Control the flow of current. Control the flow of current or currency or information to your technology advantage, and then you will be on top of the game. Look at the SWIFT system, look at the NASDAQ, which is providing the platform also for the 150 stock markets all over the world. And look at Russia and other countries now stepping out of that nefarious game. It's already done. We are just living in the times where we need to inform our fellow citizens, our fellow humans that this is the case of it, and now we need to step up. It's not really complicated now anymore. It's being complicated, and for some people it's very complicated still, but it's really simple at the core of it. Very nicely put, Mr. Ko Kanato and Lian. I like your point of views and your discussion. I will sit back and just listen to you guys. Thank you.
Okay, I was about to thanks for the time I had on the mic and listening to you, but if you, I didn't want to disturb the whole flow and conversation.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much. When you were talking about Israel and all that, there's Gistran told me one thing about Cyprus. Supon, does it mean Sweden? Sweden in Swedish? What is the link with Cyprus, the Middle East, and Sweden? Do you know?
For me, I don't know the link between Cyprus and Sweden. I'm sorry. More than just the Middle East in whole.
Okay, because right now, well, I am in Cyprus right now, and there's the war in Israel, and I get to inhale all the particles, bomb particles right now. We have all the military here who goes all the time to Israel, and we have more than 10,000 soldiers right now in Cyprus, US soldiers, who are there civil, dressed normally. They don't do anything. They're just waiting for something to come up. And I'm trying to find the link because Israel has always been something. Cyprus has always been.
Look to Turkey. Look at Turkey.
And I just want to make another example to clear.
Guys, without interrupting, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm going to tell you a story about Cyprus, Turkey, and Finland, which we were talking about before. I need to wrap this up because I have to go up in a few hours to do some things which I'm obliged to do. So I'm gonna head out a little bit here, but I'm gonna tell you a very strange story about Finnish sisu and craziness. So back in the day when the Turks were putting their forces onto the Cyprus. And we have the UN with Swedes and Finns in Cyprus, just as in, the Swedes are always there in Afghanistan and all other countries, and the Norwegians were driving the boats, creating the Gulf of Tonkin, and all of this, one of the other false flags, which we can discuss in another space, just as the Pearl Harbor, it's just theater. But this is not theatrical, this is tragical. So the Turks are coming there, they are driving up to the first UN station, which is Finnish manned by some, great, good old Finns, very strong-headed people, as they are. And they are just driving up there with, one motorized on a bicycle, on a motorcycle. And he's saying, well, guys, it would be a good idea if you just, because we have like a battalion here and, several battalions and we're going to conquer this island. So if you just draw back to the UN headquarters and so on, you will be good. You will be good. No problems. And the Finnish people at that sort of border crossing thing, there are like 16 of them, I think, if I remember the number correctly. They are saying, no, this is UN. You will not pass. this is and the guy on the motorcycle is not like the big boss. He says, "Guys, please, we are coming here with, you know, divisions, thousands of people, and so on. We don't want to fight you. Just, you know, just draw back and to the UN headquarters, and you will be good." And the Finnish people say, "Nope, that's not going to happen. This is a border, and we will stay at it." You know, like, yeah. Oh. So he goes. The motorcycle guy goes back, gets his commander, which is like, you know, big brass, Turkey army, which is the largest one in Europe, that just have exited the NATO because they said we're going to join BRICS, and the story of Turkey, the Wallenbergs, and all of this, that is one hell of a story, but we're not going to go into that. So not today, another day we'll go into that. So the guy goes back, get his chief and commander, big brass, goes to this little border station, and simply they don't want to, you know, they just want to have these crazy Finns and Swedes just to go fall back and don't interrupt with the military thing. But they are military men, all of them. So they bring the big brass, and he goes there, and he says, "Guys, please just fall back. It's no, this is the borderline. We are finished. We're gonna stick to it. Okay, I'm not gonna argue with you guys anymore, but please, we are like thousand and thousand and thousand and thousand." And so it ends up with the firefight, because the Finnish guys at that little border station, they will open up fire against army that is like 10 zillion stronger, and most of them get killed for nothing, for really nothing. But that's just how brainwashed people are.
Are you saying that the Finnish guys?
That is one story.
Does that mean Finland was in North Cyprus?
10,000. Yeah, in Cyprus, on the border when Turkey entered, they were really. It is just one snippet out of history, but they are really crazy, you know. 16 guys against 10, 15,000. It's
because you have Northern Cyprus, which we call
one crazy story.
I'm sorry. Did we lose him? I think we did.
Damn it, he's the only one who can answer my questions. This world is so messed up, it's unbelievable. It's just because I'm asking this question, because the northern part, we call it the occupied parts. Even today, everyone calls, if you tell Cypriot Turkey, no, it's not Turkey, it's not the Republic or whatever, Cyprus Republic of Turkey, it's the occupied part. Was he saying that the Finns were there and sent the Turks to invade Turkey?
Yeah.
Holy shit! So the Finns.
You are not going to pay. They were telling us straight out, this is a UN border and we are Finns, you are not getting through it. And they said, well, we are 10, 20,000 and please do not. Doesn't matter, we are Finns, this is a border, we're going to fight you. And the Turkish leader allegedly said, we are 10, 20,000. Please, you just retract to the UN headquarters. You know, and the Finns said, nope, no way. And they went back on the motorcycle, and then they were like, you know, they came at them, and the Finns started to fire. The Turks didn't start to fire. You know, they were just rolling along the highway or the road very softly and hoped that the Finns would just see that there are so many. The Finns didn't care. They just opened fire, and then they got open fired on, and most of them died. And it is crazy. That is brainwash 101.
You know, not one. I
I'm
promise
just
you.
describing.
Not one Cypriot knows this because we thought that Greek made a coup with Turkey to invade Cyprus. So the Cypriots think the biggest enemy is the Turkish. For them, the Turkish is number one enemy. They don't even though they have land houses, which now doesn't even belong to them anymore because Turkey took it over. They None of them want to go on the northern side, even though it's their country, their home. They don't dare going there. None of them ever. None of them knows anything about these Finns. It's the first time ever, and everybody thought the Greek, along with Turkey, invaded the northern parts. So what you are saying, holy shit! Tomorrow, I promise you, I'm gonna make such a story here in Cyprus. Oh man, it's.
You can check it out. You can check it out. The thing is that it has all to do with the Knights of Malta and Jerusalem when it comes to the end of the day. It goes deeper and deeper and deeper. So the Knights of Malta retired or retracted when they were kicked out of Jerusalem, and Malta is still on the board with all the nefarious actions to the deep state that these Maltesian people are doing, and the Knights of Malta, and so on and so forth. We could talk for hours about that, but I'm checking out now. We are well 1 hour overdue. Next time, Lian and Concato and all of you guys, just jump in. I have to get some hours of sleep now because I'm gonna go up very early tomorrow, and I just have a few hours to sleep. So, Tish, John, this has been a tremendous space. I know that I've been talking too much, and Leanne, thank you for your inputs. Concano or Carol, thank you for your inputs. It's been a good space. I hope that the audience that by some reason likes to listen to this, and that is a good thing because you are listening to something that is important. I hope that you had enjoyed your time. I'm going to rest my case now, and John, secretary, and Tish, just round it up, and I thank you everybody because this has been great. Leanne, we will talk next time. Just come up and speak. I appreciate all your questions, and I will remember.
Thank you so much. I promise we're gonna arrange on a group space where I will be like the journalist and I'm gonna bombard you with questions because only you. I am so shocked now. I don't even know what to say, but I have so many questions. We will do a space. Thank you so much for everything. Thank you for being the warriors you Swedes are. Thank you for being the good Swedes and just telling the whole world what even Americans, I've known South America because you like to be number one, of knowing everything, and yet the Swedes are just above us all. And it's just, well, thank you all. Thank you so much for having listened to me, taking in my questions, answering my questions. And Thank you. Have a good night. Have a great night, everyone. You're just amazing people. Thank you so much, and I love you all.
Love you too. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Mott. That we have tons of reading material that the secretary has put on top. Everybody, please check out the reading material. She does a lot of hard work putting that stuff together for us. Um, Bless you, Mott, for all your knowledge. The secretary as well, John. Um, his knowledge is just next level. We want to thank you all, for sharing with us the true history that we all really do need to know. Anybody has any questions, feel free to DM me and I'll pass it along. Follow each other. Let's follow each other. Let's keep this group going. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. Stay safe. Stay blessed. Um, and keep your head on a swivel, y'all. We love you guys. Take care and get some rest, Mr. Mott. We need you. Much love.
Thank you all. Appreciate
Tish,
it so
I'm
much.
gonna put you. Tish,
Yes, sir.
thank you, Jon. Thank you, Tish. And Tish, I will put you in the rear seat. I will put you in the gunner seat behind me, and we will crash this banged up old fighter jet straight into the main entrance of the Monvik Castle, loaded with some stinky noble dynamite.
Boom, boom, boom. God bless everyone and have a great evening. Get some rest, guys. We love you. Ciao.
Bye.
Ciao for now.